meeting, and thank you, Mayor and councillors, for coming out today. I just wanted to open up with a little reading out of the magazine, which has gone around, the consultation document, and these copies are available here today. And I did put a few in the Cozy Club, or you can get them in town if you miss out in the big rush tonight. But here's what Council have to say to us, and that is that our views matter. We want to hear what you think. No decisions have been made on any of the draft long-term plan proposals in this consultation document. Council will only make decisions on the proposals in this consultation document after input from Ruapehu communities and stakeholders. Having your say at this time is one of the best ways to influence Council's work programme. The ideal situation is where Council has a wide base of submitters informing themselves of the issues and providing constructive feedback. All feedback is considered and helps to influence any final decisions on a matter. So, all the information that we're provided with are things that we can comment on, we can influence, and we should do that because it's our future that we're talking about. It's the future of our communities, and really, if Council want to hear from us, then we should make that effort to give them our feedback once we've fully informed ourselves. So I think it's a great opportunity that we get to have this input. There's a lot of countries in the world where you'd never have this chance, and so because we can do this, we should make the most of doing it. So thank you for being here tonight, and thank you, Don and the team, for coming out and spending the time with us here today. I forgot to announce that because this is a public meeting, I just thought we need to let everyone know that the public meeting is being recorded. Is everyone okay with this?
That's good to know. Yeah, as I was saying, the last time I was here, the nights were jousting, and it was a fantastic medieval day here, and found out I was hopeless with a bow. Thank you very much for coming to this afternoon. To us, this long-term plan document is probably the most important document that we've put out for many, many years. Simply the breadth and depth of where we're going. So it's covering such things as roading, three waters, and our solid waste, the basic stuff that we do, and infrastructure. But we're adding as well economic development, town revitalisation. So that is probably something that's a bit new to particularly rural areas, but particularly for us. But on the other hand, we've been given a huge opportunity. Quite recently, we've just joined with our whole region to do a regional plan for Horizons region, in which we were asked to lead the tourism side of it. That doesn't diminish agriculture, of course, which is what you're about here, but tourism is a huge opportunity for us. Since then, we have completed business cases to go to Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, which have been accepted, and I think it's about there's 36 projects, and we're only asking for 85 million, so that should come pretty easily. But what we are expecting is pretty shortly, when I say shortly, within this year, announcements of some sort to be made. But in the meantime, we've secured around about $5 million from the Tourism Infrastructure Fund, and as you know, there's a set of toilets going on out here and 5 other areas as well. So we have been pretty successful in securing that, and so we should, I have to say, because our tourism numbers, I can remember about 6-7 years ago, Marion will well remember this, our regional tourism organisation came to us and said our big, hairy, audacious goal is to have 750,000 visitors come to our region. We now have, this year, we'll have around about 900,000. It won't be long before we've got 1 million. So what you see around us is just the start of the infrastructure that's going to be required for tourism. And towns like yours will definitely be noticing the change that's coming through. You'll become, I guess, a freedom camping mecca, or caravan mecca, as you should, because what you can offer. And we're noticing coming through Taumarunui now, and particularly Hokuni and Ngāraitahi, a huge build-up of number of people just coming to visit. And our job is to make them stay longer and part with money so that we get an economy going. I think the important thing about that is that we'll absolutely rely on agriculture going well into the future. But as we all know, and as we experienced just some weeks ago, climate change and other environmental matters is impacting quite hard on agriculture. and we'll need some support going into the future, and absolutely we're looking to do that. In fact, we have already done that with those 19 farms that were impacted. We're just giving them a small package around a couple of days dry hire of a digger to get their tracks open, and also for some even a rake's holiday, because 6 of those properties are being very, very badly affected, 3 of which I do not know how they're going to recover. But they will, but over time, and depends on their debt levels. So that's the sort of future we're looking at, which is quite different to what we've experienced. So what we do need to have is 2 economies that can, when there are bad times in one, it can sort of cushion the other, so we can just get through, so our towns, our communities don't suffer as they have in the past. So that's the sort of scenario, I guess, where we're starting from. But to us, this long-term plan is, as I say, is probably the most important one we've put out, because we're obviously looking at our debt levels to go up, because if we're going to do everything we have to do, our debts will go up. But there is a but, and hopefully it's a good one. This government has come through, been elected, is very definitely wanting to join a partnership with local government New Zealand, and that is funding across infrastructure. That's the 3 waters, and possibly something to do with solid waste going into the future. That we're yet to find out. But in particular, the 3 waters, and also our transport. So Clive will give you the details around that. But to us, if the government is really keen to do, and they have expressed that, in fact, next week after next, I think as we have a National Council meeting with local government New Zealand and with the government around the governorship and future funding for our infrastructure. So to me, that means that they're obviously very serious. And all I can say is at last. Why the 2 have not joined together 20 years ago is beyond me, but they are going to. And hopefully that is going to make a huge difference to our ratepayers. So from that, that sort of gives you, I guess, the scenario where we're coming from. I'll now hand over to, Marion. I've forgotten all past. Marion is your member, and I have to say a very vociferous member for you in council. Whether it's your roads, all the people, all your communities. Marion, certainly we hear from Marion, so thanks very much. So I'll now hand over to Clive, our CE. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that. Look, what I'd like to do is just to explain a little bit about the documents. First of all, those of you who have picked up the consultation document, they say you should never start with an apology, but if you go through this, document, it is quite a big read, and the reason is that we have to comply with legislation about what goes in. The rule is not to make it as readable as possible for you; it is to comply with a whole lot of specifications. So I do read through. It gives you a lot of good detail, but if you really want some other reading, what we've done is produce these 1 pages on each of the issues, and that's just got the key facts. So I'd suggest that what you do is you just go through the 1 pages of those that you're interested. If you want to know more, then go into that consultation document or any of the supporting documents that there are. But I would recommend just go through these 1 pages to start with.
How many are there?
Sorry?
How many of those is there?
There's 7. They're on here for you. You can help yourself. These are all available for you at the end of the meeting. Just help yourself. And there's also reference to other documents. As I said, if you really want to delve down in one particular topic, there's as much information as you want, and it's online and all the rest of it for you as well. So it's a legally set of documents, as I said. What we do have to do, though, is that when council does its planning, we have to show that we can carry it out. So the 10-year plan that we're consulting on, everything has been budgeted for and put in that 10-year plan. So any changes that we make, we've also got to demonstrate that it can be done with kind of rate rises. What we've shown is the rate rise over the 10 years is about 3.5%, and that's based on inflation. Well, it's the cost index for local government plus 2%, and that extra 2% covers all the growth things that we're talking about. With the fact that you're putting new extension onto this hall. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned at the front, if you need to go to the toilets during the meeting, it's the water tower ones that are working, the other ones are getting altered at the moment. But when you do alterations, that can mean more depreciation. You've got to allow for it being replaced in the future. You may have had to borrow to buy it, plus you may have extra maintenance. All that bit of it comes from that extra 2% that we add on each year. So the rate rise we've tried to keep consistent. We're told that the businesses, one thing they need is certainty of what to budget for and allow for. So that's what we've done. It's been managed to achieve that 3.5, not going over that. So this year it's right about 3.7, but it'll be in that kind of order of 3.5 through it. What we are doing, though, is every time you get a revaluation, that means that in reality very few people will get the average figure. Some will get in reductions, and there's a lot in this area that will get reductions. Some will get increases, and it depends on where your valuation occurred and if you've done alterations, and there's a whole host of things that can mean your own individual valuation goes up or, well, very seldom goes down. So that it will vary, and if you need to know what your specific rate rise is, when you go online, again, there's a little link that you can see what your particular rates would go up to under what we're proposing in the plan. So the plan, as the Mayor said, is a very ambitious one. And as Michelle said right at the beginning, there's a lot of choices and questions that we're asking in this plan. It is not about this is what we're doing, okay. It is very much, there's some issues, and I'll go through them when we're discussing them. You can go either way, and Council is genuinely wanting to hear from the community before it makes a call on what sort of choice to do on some of those topics, and to really make our district great, or even greater than we have. One thing that we often get hung up on is we talk about submissions and we talk about coming to council to make presentations. Please don't get fazed by our process. We're required to do that. We're stuck with doing a lot of that. But you can talk, you can email, you can write, you can, whatever means is your way of giving us comments. That is all you need to do. We have to go through a formal process with submissions and hearings and things, but that, if you're not comfortable in that, talk to your, Marion, the local councillor, or any method that you feel you want to get your view across. You can even get someone to fill in a form for you if you want to, if you don't want to write things down. So don't feel constrained by our process. Our process we have to do, but we want to hear from you in the way that you want to, discuss things. So don't get fazed by our process. So do use every opportunity to let us hear whether we've got it right or what your views are on some of those topics. What we want to talk to tonight, and the first bit is me talking, but I want it to be a two-way one once we get going. We're going to be talking about roading, talking about the waters, the solid waste, the township revitalisation, the economic development, the opportunity we have with the cycle trail, the Mountains to Sea, and some community facilities. So they'll be the main headings, but any other topic that you want to talk about, there will be time for that, and we do want to hear it. These are the ones that we have to consult on, but that does not constrain you. You still can raise what's important to you and what you believe is important here. So again, we'll use that as a sort of a structure, and if we haven't covered your issues at the end, then we'll get into your issues. So don't feel that I'm trying to, guide you down a certain direction. We are interested in what you've got to say. So we'll just go through now in a little bit of detail. First of all, in the roading, we have a large network, and we get government through your road tax contributes to a fair proportion of the amount of maintenance and work that we do on the roads. Because we get government money for it, they do audit it every year or every so often to make sure that we're doing what we say we would. when they looked at it last time, because of the pressures of forestry, because of the pressures of the, you know, the storm events that we get, they're saying no, there's probably about 2 million more that needs to be spent on our network each year. But what they also recognised was that that's not affordable for us in our communities. So they recommend that the government contribution goes up rather than the local share, which comes out of rates, go up. So what they proposed was that each year their contribution goes up 1%. What we're doing is saying, look, we're really grateful for that, but we need it sooner. So we've asked them to basically bring it all up into the first year. So that discussion's still going on. But at the moment, we are acknowledging that there is greater demands on our roading network, but we're also working with the government, and they appear to be saying that they're prepared to, you know, to pay that extra amount for it. The other thing that's going on, obviously, which is built into our 10-year plan, is a lot of our... Yes, sorry, please.
Is that 2 million a set amount, or is that a higher percentage?
We've got, at the moment we spend about 15 million on roading, and it's 2 million on top of the 15, so I bring it up to about 17 million a year.
Are we sponsored 60%, 40%?
The actual percentage is actually more than 60, isn't it? It's
67 at the
67
moment.
at the moment.
Up to 72, Blue.
Yeah.
We're asking to go up now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're one of the districts that the government acknowledges that we need, you know, we're on the high end of getting government assistance compared to some districts. Yeah. Yeah, so we have bridges, as you know, we've got a lot of them in our district, and again, we've built in that program into the 10-year plan to be able to upgrade them. Occasionally, if like happened this year, when a bridge starts to show stress because of all the extra, you know, logging trucks or whatever, then we had to bring it forward, and that meant something else, you know, that wasn't under the same stress got down. But there is provision to be able to do all the bridges over the, you know, over time to keep them up to standard. So look, any questions on roading before we move on to the waters? So
with all those logging trucks that are coming through here,
yeah.
like some of those coming from Tamanui and going over the Waitongs, you can't stop them and send them around the 8 miles. It seems a bit, they're destroying that road in the winter, aren't they? Must be costing everybody a pile of money.
Yeah. It's a really difficult one. We introduced last year a new sort of extra charge for forestry users for the road to acknowledge the amount of damage that's been done to the roads, but it still isn't enough. You know, when you do a forest, there may be years of where there's very little demand on the roads, but when they harvest, boy, do you know the roads know about it.
It seems feasible they go when they're doing forest here, but when they're coming from Tamanui, coming across the Oka Orange over here.
We do try and discuss with them alternate routes, but effectively, if you know money, you've got to go from A to B, and the longer they do, it affects the dollars. So you know it's quite critical for them. But we do try and influence down routes, and we are asking if the Transport Authority can acknowledge the fact that they may view a longer route and compensate that in some way. But at the moment, they still make economic choices.
Mr. CEO. Last year we had some major damage on that Waitonga road from the logging truck.
Yeah.
And we drove the road with our chief engineer, Warren Ferner, and identified the reason the Waitonga was having a lot more damage than the Taranaki side of the same gravel road was because the camber wasn't steep enough and the water table was too shallow. Right. And I could just mention that we're going into another winter and our cameras are still flat, and our water tables are still extremely shallow, so unless there's something done in the next 2 or 3 months, you will experience a major...
It never sees a grade, does it, either? And then they grade it flat?
The grade is still graded particularly flat. It's not cambered up to an extent that the water runs off. And of course a wet road gets soft, and the soft road turns to mud a hell of a lot quicker than one that turns to water and stays dry for the winter. Okay. But a great percentage of the problem is the fact that once the water comes off the road, it hasn't got anywhere to go because the sides haven't been done for that long. The banks have been falling in continuously, the gravel's been continuously coming off the road, and the edges need taking down. I don't mean a foot, I mean a metre. Yeah. if I can tangle up the difference between a foot and a metre and the metrics and the old imperial system.
Yeah, so I know a foot is, yeah.
LTP, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it needs to be done as a separate contact, I
Yeah.
would say, in my unspecified opinion.
So Warren's, you've had these discussions with Warren, so...
We drove the road and inspected it.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
Don was-
Well, if you haven't heard back what we're doing, we'll make sure that you get, you know, the view back. Yeah, sorry, I can't answer your question directly now, but I'll find out from Warren what is...
I'm just wondering whether personally the letter I wrote to council contributes to the 10-year plan, or whether I'm expected to write another one and stand up and tell the same story a second time. Because I've been through all this procedure with the council last year. So I imagine the powers that be have taken it on board.
There's no harm in just putting this copy again, you know, you don't have to rewrite it, just literally send another copy during the submission period, and that doesn't help, you know, it doesn't harm you to do that. But I'm sure Warren would have been considering what you've been saying, but I will follow that through for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has actually, Lou, he has considered, and it's in the GH, we know it's in the work plan.
Right.
The only thing that's been held up now is because of this storm event. We've got most of our guys are now stuck up in the roads and got heating proper oil. They'll be there probably for the next 2 to 3 months.
Right.
But it doesn't mean to say you can't get someone else to do it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll follow that through. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else on roading or transport? Okay. We'll move on to the waters then. I think no one in this room would argue the fact that water is a precious resource for us. Our catchment, whether it's looking after the catchments, whether it's having decent water to be able to drink, or treating the sewage that goes back in, or just the stormwater generally. So the 3 waters are a really big, important issue for all of us, and we do want things to improve. What they're finding nationally, though, is that the dollars to sort it all out is huge. And as the Mayor alluded to in his opening remarks, we have allowed for the works that we believe is needed in our 10-year plan, but it pushes the debt levels right through, way beyond where we're comfortable that we should be. So we are talking to the government, and what we're hoping is over the next 3 years, which is the sort of the first 3 years of the 10-year plan, that the government will give us some indication on how it will assist us, because they've said that councils such as ourselves, they accept that the burden would be too great for us to fund it from our limited rating base. But at the moment we've put it in the plan, because obviously they need to be able to see what the issue might be. But when you see the debt levels, you'll see that they're considerably higher than any of us are really comfortable for. But what we have done, though, is for the next 3 years, the debt levels are not any more than it was in the last plan. And then the big increases sort of come in the year 4 onwards, but by then we should have a clearer direction from the government about how they may be able to help us, in which case we'll adjust it by the next plan. But the 3 waters are a big issue, and I don't need to say it to you in this community. You understand the importance of it. One thing that we are proposing is that when you're managing, saying, drinking water or the sewage treatment side of it, it is much easier to manage it as a function rather than an individual scheme. So at the moment, you have your scheme coming along. When it needs upgrading, you get a big hike in your charges for the water or the sewage, whatever it was, and then it goes along, and then another big hike. What we're proposing in this plan is that by making it a district-wide charge for the people who consume water or using the sewage treatment, that it's evened out. So over the 10 years, it's just a pretty uniform cost structure, and also it's treated as a district. So Tamarunui subsidise, if you like, the likes of here, but what it does do, it means that we can manage it as a function, and then when things are needed to be done, the whole district that's using the water or the sewage can contribute to it. This topic, it's quite controversial. It's fair to say that on the council table, you've got both views being represented, and this is one of the issues that they're really looking for input from the community to decide on. Do you want to retain the sort of ownership of a scheme by scheme where you're in charge of your scheme, well, when you say in charge of it, you've still got to comply with all the government regulations and everything else that's going on, and the resource consents, but effectively you pay for what you're getting, or whether we manage it on a district-wide basis where it really smooths out all those big peaks and troughs. So as I said, the councillors are really interested in knowing what the views are. So even if you agree with district-wide, don't just ignore it. Please say you support it, or if you want to retain the scheme by scheme, say that as well, because this is one that council's really having an interesting debate on which way it would go. The other thing that we're taking the opportunity on, when we put in supplies, a number of years ago, often farms would take takeoffs from the raw water line. That had other connections, and now we're really just saying, look, is this fair that with the way it is, that people are just tapping in and getting free water, or should we make a concerted effort and any commercial use or farming use is metered and paid for versus some of the free collections? We know there's some arrangements that were made when a pipe went through a land. There was sort of offsets made then. We're not talking about things where we've got agreements in place for. We're talking about the sort of proliferation of the extra connections that have grown through the years, and we're just saying, right, well, is this time for us to really get in and sort it all out? So that's a sort of an issue that people who've got tapped into the untreated water supply. Not to mention the fact that they're probably drinking untreated water supply, and with what happened in Havelock North, you've got an extra emphasis now on having safe, guaranteed safe drinking water. So that's another issue that we'll be consulting on at the same time. So the key thing is, first of all, there's big dollars attached to it, which is mainly driven from government standards and from resource consent standards. But we're proposing that district-wide funding may help manage it, but that's the bit that there's no clear direction. We do need support from the community on that. So any comments on any of the waters, whether it's drinking water, sewerage or stormwater?
When you say district-wide rating on water, like drinking water, is
Yep.
that just the people who are using it?
Yeah, just the ones you're drinking on the public supply, but it would mean that whatever amount was being spent in Aokuni or in Huhura, it literally be one rate for everyone. So initially, places like Aokuni goes up, they go up a reasonable amount, and here would go down, but that's offset by the fact that when they did their treatment up plant in future years, they would have had a big hike, whereas now they won't. It'll stay at that sort of level with increments each year. Okay, no more on water. Okay, now solid waste. We've only got one landfill, well, municipal landfill in the district, and that's at Taumarunui. That resource consent is up in 2 years from now. The cost of building new or putting new cells in is getting more and more, really it's beyond our reach. The standards required to manage landfills now are becoming extremely high. So we will have to take our waste out of the district and go to someone else's bigger, better landfill. So the costs will rise, quite considerably taking it out of a district. If we want to manage the cost to yours and I's pocket for what we do on the waste, then it's in our hands to reduce the amount of waste to landfill, which means we need to recycle more. We need to, reuse more of the things, be more careful with the packaging that we use in generating. So we can individually make a bigger impact on the dollars that we pay than anything that we can do at council level. So what we're trying to do over the next probably couple of years is work with the community to say, right, well, what can we do to help you reduce the amount of waste that's going to the landfill? So an obvious one is food waste. In a rural area, you compost it, or chickens, or pigs, or whatever you've got. But not everyone does that. We still get quite a proportion of our waste being in that area. So again, in the sort of townships like Taumarunui, we're talking about, do we need a separate sort of collection for food waste? Do we need to extend the amount of plastics that we recycle? At the moment, it's only the 1s and 2s. Do we make it to all plastics and then we sort it at source? And also the reuse. Do we encourage more community groups to start reusing what's at them? All those things require individual behaviour change, not council, in the sense that council can help things by introducing schemes, but it will really depend on us whether we do it. Unfortunately, over the last few years, our waste has increased. In other words, we're recycling less than we used to. So we're getting a little bit complacent with the amount of sorting that we do ourselves. So over the next couple of years, we're going to have to really engage with the communities to say, is there a better way that we can work together on reducing the amount of waste that we're going to have to take out of our district, in a couple of years' time. So I don't know if anyone's got any comments on that topic.
Can I just ask, how will that affect the transfer station here? Are we going to retain our transfer station?
Margaret, I can introduce Margaret. She's responsible for that area, but I think the answer is yes, but let you into it in more detail.
Thank you. Yeah, the answer is yes at this stage, and as everybody in this room will know, you've got a very passionate person on site at that transfer station who will be more than willing and wanting to help, recycle more, etc., etc., etc. So this community is actually very lucky to have such a passionate operator of her transfer station.
Great.
Just wondering, it seems that the problem lies in far too much over-packaging.
Yeah.
So is there any way that the council can sort of go upwards rather than, I know that this needs to come from ground level too,
Yeah.
but is there any way that council can go upwards and say our district needs less over-packaging and start operating through that way as well?
Yeah, the simple answer is yes, but I'll let the Mayor answer a bit more detail.
So there's a remit that's gone through the local government New Zealand around getting rid of plastic bags, start with that. And it's gone to the government. It's got to wait for the ballot system for it to be drawn out, to be put into legislation. But it sounds like, talking with James Shaw, that's now just a small part of the whole environmental packages he's looking at, because they want to not only reduce plastic bags, but packaging of all sorts, particularly those damn packages where you buy USB for your computer and it takes you half an hour to get into it, and you cut your hands and you wonder what you're going to do with bits and pieces. You can't do anything with it. So he is already talking with major, not only food outlets, but also toy manufacturers, all those sort of people, to try and reduce it or get rid of it in total. A major reason is that, and we keep saying it, probably council's sick of everything, is that in 2030, the amount of plastic that's actually in the ocean is going to outweigh the amount of fish that's in the ocean, and that's a blight on all of us, to be honest. So I think there's going to be some pretty dramatic things to be done in the next few years. So good on them.
Yeah. So simple things that we can do, like the New World in Tamarinu now, if you bring your own bags, then they'll credit you, I think it's it's at 5 cents a bag. So they ask you how many, so you can bring your reusable bags and not use them. I know it's only a small thing, but it all adds up. It's the old thing. Each of us will just have to do that much, a little bit more if we're going to make a difference to this.
And I'll tell you something. The CEO loves his morning coffee, and I challenged him on having a reusable coffee cup. Well, to his great credit, he's actually every morning now uses this reusable coffee cup, and I daren't buy coffee from a paper cup. He set the standard for our staff. So within staff, we're now introducing possibly, lead by example, and it's little steps, but it's still a step.
Yeah. And things like the schools are taking a lead. They've got worm farms going at the schools. All these things, they may only be small because it's only a school, but if every school is sort of containing its own sort of waste and reusing stuff, think of the difference it's going to make. So, yeah, that's right. All those things. So, any other questions on the waste? So, as I said, we'll be having that discussion over the next few years and probably forever in that sense, but at least concerted effort in the next couple of years anyway. Right. attractive townships, and you, by the way, you do realise that you've beaten the march of everyone in the district, and we use you as a shining example of what a community can do if it wants to. When we launched the centre revitalisation sort of a year and a bit ago, the message we were trying to say is that this is not just about councils going to work with Taumarunui or work with Okuni or whatever it was. We wanted to set aside some money, which is what's proposed in this long-term plan, for all our communities, but it's up to the communities to get agreement and work with council on what we can do. Well, your community was the first off the block. You got your money the first than anyone else. Taumarunui might be the second, you never know. It's up to them whether we've got another meeting tomorrow night on it as well. But really well done for getting together and deciding what was important to you. You know, every community is different. That's why it's not for people like me coming in and saying, oh, this will be good for your community. You know what's right for your community. We can give advice and help, but really it's up to you. So well done for really coming together on deciding what to do with this hall and the toilets there, you know, and all the other stuff that you're doing with the, you know, the sort of freedom camping type of thing. Or it's responsible camping, we call it now, isn't it? It's changed its name. So, yeah. So no, but well done. So, but in other areas, what we're really saying with attractive townships, it is not about just the people who live in the towns. If you're a farmer and you need to get some extra help on the farm, those people have got to live somewhere and they've got to want to come into our district. Whether it's family or whatever, we need them to have pride in the district and be able to do things in the district. So again, by tackling all our town centres, you know, over the next few years, we really want to make it a place that we're proud of, and that professional people or tradespeople or family people who we need to retrain or come back, they feel that, you know, a bit of pride in the area and want to live in here. So that we've got in our plan. We've set aside. Originally, we thought it'd be about 10 million, but there was when we've done the numbers, it's about 8.4 million. So it's not a small sum that we've set aside for the 10 years, but that covers every one of our communities and hopefully realising the aspirations of what, you know, each community wants. So I don't know, again, but one thing I would say though, it's not at the expense of water or roading. It's not that we've said, right, let's cut our roading back and put it into there. This is what is needed for the town revitalisation. There's nothing come from the water or the roading or any of, you know, the waste. That's all budgeted for separately, and it's not an either or. It's a balanced budget that includes it. As you've shown here, you know, if you want to put your mind to it, you can, you know, do it quickly. You know, some of our other communities will take quite a few years before they probably get agreement amongst themselves what they want to do. So any questions on the town centre revitalisation? There is some smaller sums, by the way, for even smaller communities. It's a sort of pride of place, and it may just be a bit of furniture or something that's been proposed. But again, we want every community, you know, large or small, to be able to look at its own sort of centre and decide what do we need to do to you know, just to make us feel, you know, prouder of where we are. Nothing else on that one? Okay. Economic development. The Mayor covered this in quite a bit of detail. We're not saying that tourism is the only thing that matters. What we're saying is that there's a whole host of things that make our economy grow, but when you look at opportunities or new opportunities, tourism appears to be the one that we could probably get the most gain from, and this is the one that regionally they're supporting us and government has been supporting it as well. The acknowledgement is that with, you know, going up to 1 million visitors, it needs the infrastructure to cover it as well. So again, all the other topics that we've been talking about, whether it's roading or waters or town revitalisation, they have to allow for that kind of growth. But here, this is all about, first of all, making us visible on the international and domestic stage, and that already has shown the you know, paid dividends from the work that's already been done on that. So the visitor Rupehu has done a great job in making us a lot more visible, and when you look at the numbers of increases, it's, you know, it's quite dramatic. In fact, when you compare us with Taupo and Rotorua and all those, our increases are way percentage more than their increases. So yes, New Zealand is growing, but we're taking a bigger and bigger part of the pie, you know, from the rest of New Zealand, which is great. One thing we have been given a lot of feedback on, though, is that if you're a farm, you're saying, well, it's all right getting all the promotion, but really the commercial people are the ones who are really benefiting most by it. So we are proposing a change in that. In the past, a lot of it was on what your capital value. So if you had a big farm or a big bit of land, you would be paying quite a large proportion of the economic budget. What we're doing is making a flat fee for everyone, because everyone does benefit from more people coming into the district, but then having a targeted rate on the actual commercial area itself. So they will be fronting up with more of the money that's needed. The other bit that we've been told is that it's probably not fair. Those people who use the sort of book a batch type of thing where you use accommodation, you're not a commercial rate, so you're not paying extra through the commercial rate, but you're getting the benefit of us growing the tourism and the visitors coming to the district. So what's proposed, and it's only a proposal for this year, it will be another year before it's introduced, but anyone who advertises accommodation and takes accommodation, we have a flat charge of $200, and that goes into the economic development and visitor ruapehu, tourist and things on it. So again, this is one that we're consulting on. It came from the community. The community was saying we want the people who are benefiting from the extra tourists to contribute to the sort of extra service levels that we're having to prepare for it. And again, we'd be interested in your view. Some people say it doesn't go far enough. We'd be interested to see if we've, captured it right. Yeah.
Yeah, that $200 flat rate would seem to, it would be bigger, it could be on a per capita or as opposed the amount of business that you do. If we only have 1 or 2 people stay every month, and we're going to pay $200. It's tough. That's compared to the person who's got selling their accommodation every week.
The issue we have, if it reaches the threshold of being commercial, then we're not. This is only non-commercial properties, but we don't know your business and the cost of checking to see how profitable you are or how successful you are. That's not really an area that we want to go into. So we've just tried to do an arbitrary, if you advertise accommodation, you're deemed to be an accommodation provider, and if you're not commercial, you get a flat fee. The amount could be considered. You could have a sliding scale, you could have a lower figure, a higher figure. That's up to submissions, but the general principle is let's have a simple system that doesn't have a lot of overheads in calculating it. It's easy enough to get a sweep of who advertises to see who's got advertising accommodation. So, but those comments are the sort of things that the councillors do need to hear, because this is as you know, in a lot of other areas of the country, this is a topic that if you go too high and make it too aggressive, you get a big kickback from people. And if you make it too soft, there's no money coming in to help you with the extra challenges. Helping accommodation providers, contribute. $200 was seen to be reasonable, but that's for you to tell us whether it is or not.
I know it's certainly going to be difficult to get it, as opposed to the amount of business we might do. There's the other case, of course, that we're sort of closer to Taranaki here, and our visitors tend to come from that direction, whereas Ruapehu and the Central is, well, I suppose we get visitors from that side too. Some people are going to benefit more than others.
Yeah. No system, unfortunately, our rating system is not perfect by any means, so whatever we do will not be perfect, but I think what we're trying to do is to be fair, so those who feel that people who are providing accommodation should be contributing, then it's how do we achieve that without burdening or, stopping that. Yeah. Any other questions on economic development? Yes. Yeah.
By providing accommodation. They're doing their part by providing accommodation for the tourists, aren't they? Aren't they being a service giver?
They are, but then they're coming in. They're using roads. They're using the water. They're generating waste. All those things. They're all. It's just this has come from the community. It was the community that for the last quite a few years have said they're not contributing to the why is the farms paying, because they've got the big capital, the ones with the capital properties are paying the big bulk of all this stuff, and they're just saying why aren't the others who are benefiting from tourism not contributing more. So we've addressed it partly by putting in a commercial rate, but if you're not commercial, then they're still not necessarily contributing to the extra cost. Yeah.
Can I make Mr CEO aware of the fact that we come under the Taranaki Department of Conservation?
Right.
And the people would have been aware of this when they were looking at that department, bit of parcel of land where we're clearing it for fruit trees about
Yep.
for a long year. And both Taranaki and Rupai Department of Conservation didn't want to know about it. But we tracked it down, and it's Taranaki, and obviously we're on an extreme limb for them. So when you start talking about tourism, then you start to talk about the bush and walking tracks, and we're on a bit of a back foot there because we've got to go to a whole different area for our information.
Okay.
We're in a bit of grey zone there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, unfortunately, when you look at Ruapehu, we are health board, you name it, we're all sort of divided. We just seem to be the bit in the middle that's sort of, on the fringe of everyone. So, yeah.
With that accommodation, if the person doesn't live in the house, like say they live in Auckland, they rent it out to people who come periodically, how can they be viewed as using more of everything if they're not actually there as well as the tourist? So it's just the tourist?
Yeah.
So it's just like a person?
I think it's basically, if they're advertising it as accommodation, it'll be deemed to be accommodation. So we're trying to make it as simple as that, because there's not enough income to warrant a complicated system.
It's just more the excuse that is being used to up it is probably not really true, because a lot of people don't live in the house that they rent out.
And look, in Iowa and probably in Taranaki, roughly 35% of the houses are owned by people outside the district.
Yeah, so they don't live in it?
No, but nearly all of them that advertise pay know they get enough for their rates, their insurance, what else are they covering? The guys I was talking to. And they're making about $4,000 or $5,000 a year, and they're paying, they haven't to pay tax money. This guy rewritten interest about $200. I said, well, actually, you're not contributing a cent towards those people coming. We're actually bringing them into you so you can actually take advantage of it. What are you putting back into it? And he said, well, what can I answer that one? He had to go away and talk about it. He had an answer, which was pretty rude actually. But so that's the problem we've got. So we've got, particularly in Haukuni, Waihi, and even now in Tongariro, we've got a heck of a lot of places.
You guys have identified the actual hotspots of that.
Yeah.
Those should be the ones that are targeted, not just a blanket 200 across everyone who isn't actually got that sort of income from those properties. Like you come to a hura and you say $200, nothing. But the person might only rent their yurt out or their room a few times a year. And they're being targeted by this extortionist type tax.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but all I'd say is if you imagine that you're in sort of the council's officer's role, how do we know that you've only used it for a few weekends versus every weekend? For us to know that, it is very difficult, administratively wise. We're not going to check on your premise every week and all the rest of it. So we need a simple system, but if you can come up with one that's fairer, then of course we want to know that, because this is trying to respond to those who are saying no, accommodation providers should be contributing for it. We've already targeted the commercial units to pay more towards it and less towards the general one. And if you can think of a system that's fairer for Ahura, then please, anyone come up with those things that we can look at.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. So as I said, a lot of these topics, there's different views on the table, and that's where we do need your input into it to be able to adjust it. Nothing more on the economic development? The cycle trail, the government announced another part of the, Manchester Sea cycle trail, and they did commit 2 million to it, but there was another sort of 2.9 million that had to be found from the local share. Now, at the moment, what it's been proposed is that should be done by private trusts, private sort of money to contribute to the other parts of the cycle. But some people have said, why isn't council involved? Why aren't we contributing? We all benefit from the extra people that are coming in to use the cycleways, so why doesn't council put money in? So at this stage, we have not put any money in. With our probably dominant view, if you like, is saying, no, this should be for trusts or fundraisers or to raise the extra money. But you, again, may have a different view. You may feel, well, no, that takes too long. We get the benefit from it, therefore let's put some money in. So that's the real topic. The government have got 2 million, dependent on a local share. At the moment, it's left with the cycle organisations and everything else to do it. But I don't know, Don, want to make any more comments on that? But
well, it's still got to go through the process of going to the Conservation Authority and to the Minister, and she's come back asking a whole heap of questions, so it's been held up anyway. But no, we'd be really interested in that, because, to be quite honest, we've got close to 500 k's now of cycle trail here, and we're lucky in most of it's in DOC estate. So DOC are the ones that are doing most of the R&M on those, not us. We help where we can, mainly around road access into those cycleways. And it's costing DOC a lot of money, but they're about to get a new budget from this government who want to actually extend cycleways for people's health and also for tourism. So I know which way I feel, and I think a trust can be set up, but it's not going to be easy to do. And as most of you know, like Taupo look after their own, it's a private trust, and Taupo Council does put some money into it, but it's not huge enough. Run, but of course that's centred around Taupo, and they get 3,000 people a weekend going through there, and they can charge them. So and that's the problem. If we start charging, where do we start and where do we stop? So I can imagine the community saying no to that.
Okay, no other comments on that one? Community facilities, these tend to be very local discussions and debates. So for instance, the ones that we've put on the board there, the Tamaroo Memorial Hall, swimming pool, Ratahi Service Centre, cemetery, they're in the document there's a sort of list of projects that we're proposing. It is very much a local issue, but again, some of them are, just taking the Memorial Hall is a good example. We have a nice large facility in Tamaroo, but it's hardly used. It needs earthquake strengthening, which would cost about $500,000. To realistically make it or help it to be used more, you'd spend another $500,000 on top of that as well. So about $1 million on making the hall up to a standard what we should have. At the moment, we just don't have the people wanting to use the hall to justify that kind of dollars. And even when they do use it, they usually knock on the mayor's door to say, can you help us with the highage fees because it's a charity event or whatever on there. So from a pure business case or from your rates money, you would not upgrade these halls because they're just not being used. However, you try closing a hall to a community and it's nearly impossible to do. So really, again, the council's divided on this issue. Do we put $1 million into this hall and upgrade it, or do we use that money to make a purpose-built multi-purpose sort of function in one of the existing facilities, say in the sport facility or whatever, to get more use of the money that you're putting in? So again, this was consulted a few years ago, and the community said no, you can knock it down. But then there was a bit of a groundswell saying no, we don't really want you to do that. So again, I think it's like with all these community issues, everything comes with a price tag, and it's your money. And the more millions we spend on things, the higher the rates go. So this is a real, this is a Tamanui, this particular one, but you all have similar examples of facilities that you have that you've got to weigh up the use of it with the money that we're putting into it, which is your money. So I don't know if anyone's got any comments or questions on sort of facilities.
Well, I would just like to say that I have lots of ideas to increase the use of our hole here.
Great.
So I would really love to retain our hole. So I think it's going anywhere.
Yes, no, we haven't got any plans for this one, but yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so, look out for that space because I think we can put this to really good use.
But I think that's a good example of the way council has responded. Because you value the hall and you've got plans to use it, council got behind you in improving the facilities here. So again, that's in the hands of all communities, is to show that it's worth something to them, and then it's worth investing from a ratepayer point of view. No other questions on that? Right, just so again, just really repeating to us, use whatever method, like the comments you've made tonight, we've been taking notes of them and we'll follow them through. We want all your views on any topic, and this part of, although I've gone through the formal bit that if you like, we've asked for direct views on. If you've got anything else you want to raise now or during the submission process, please put them in. We're not constraining you to what we've done or our form things. It's whatever is important to you. So really, anyone got other issues that we haven't covered so far that you'd like to raise? Yeah.
I do have kind of a general question, and that is, sometimes it must feel like the council, you guys are kind of the meeting in the middle, because you've got government over here saying, right, you've got to comply with this, and here's this cost of compliance, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do that, and then we're over here going, yeah, but we don't actually agree with any of that, what the government wants you to do, plus it's going to cost us extra. So how do we push back on the government-initiated costs of compliance, whereas a community, we might go, well, this is actually ridiculous. Where's the tool and the
it depends on it depends on the topic. You see, the drinking water is a good example. Probably this week, Cabinet will release a view on the sort of the results from the Havelock North one. The Havelock North, they introduced new drinking water standards quite a number of years ago. They brought in some subsidy schemes to help councils move up to it. But when there was that, people basically were drinking contaminated water in the Havelock North, what they found was the decision had been left too local, and they'd chosen not to comply fully with the regulations. So now they're looking at even more draconian, bringing in penalties and enforcing standards. So it depends on how important the proposals are to the government, is how much leeway we do have. So, for instance, when all the new financial reforms came in the 90s, that was when we had to start depreciating for assets, and balanced budgets and all those sorts of things came in. That was mandatory. They allowed us a few years to basically bring our standards up. But after those few years were up, they would have literally tagged and not approved the budgets for it. So there's limited rebellion sort of options when you're in local government, because we are here based on statute, and we work within the statute. So to be fair, you do have local decisions, and that's what we're going through. As you can see from the presentation, there's different choices you can do to achieve an outcome. But the extra cost of compliance is one that local government's been complaining about for probably decades, because we keep getting imposed, whether it's food regulations or liquor regulations, and we don't always see the benefit in our district. It tends to affect some areas more than others, and yet we all pay for it. So I think all you can do is question things and use your MP, influence through MPs when they're looking at changing things. Any other questions or comments, please?
Well, I've got one last little...
You want to go on to that?
Okay. Yes.
So next slide, yeah.
So, as you've seen, there's a very plain toilet arrived on your back doorstep, and these are some just suggestions of images that have come through from Michelle, and I just thought it would be useful to pop them up and get a bit of feedback tonight, because they're all quite different. And what Owhongo did was, through the Residents and Ratepayer Society, they sort of got a bit of a consensus, and they've actually, and I'll send it through to Michelle so she can perhaps distribute it, give you an idea. They put a photograph of the lagoon in the Ohanitonga Reserve on their toilets, and it just looks
It's beautiful.
amazing.
It does.
But
Yeah.
it's a similar sort of image.
So these are real high gloss, sort of high definition photographs that you nearly don't know the difference between the sort of scenery behind when you're looking at it. So I'll just flick through them. So that's one. That's another one.
That's from the reserve just down the road there.
Yeah, these are all local photos, aren't they, Michelle?
Yeah.
I was just trying to decide whether I could plug my computer into the PowerPoint, but I've got the photos of the Owhongo toilet here.
Ah, okay. We might better. So I'll just go back a bit. Right, so you've got that one. You've got that one. Got that one.
This one will give you.
And you've got that one. Okay.
And if you can't put it up there, Rebecca, the Owhongo one, people come and look.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I can show you what I've got here.
But I'd be really keen to hear, it's a pity there's not more people, but I mean, is there anything that sort of jumps out?
Could we do one, like it's kind of a square structure, isn't it? Could you do a different photo on each side? Or is it just one big wrap?
It's one big wrap, actually.
So how's it best for you to give us the input? Obviously, we've got to get it made and put on. And what sort of time frame are we? When do we need to have made a decision?
I don't think that's critical time frame wise, but I guess, what do you think, Michelle? How would we disseminate this through the community?
Well, if more people came to the meetings, it would be a lot easier. I can email out
They could vote on
photos
Facebook.
to
Yeah.
people. Oh yeah,
They can like it on Facebook.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
They could
Yeah.
write a poll on Facebook,
Yeah, you can do polls.
actually. Yeah.
And if people want to come up with other sort of photos, you know, and then we can continue liking them or whatever until we get some consensus. So.
Something you want to get right. That's really
Yeah, but if you ever are going anywhere near Whango, it looks really amazing, these sort of photos on the walls. So there's a real good opportunity to celebrate whatever it is you choose. So that's the opportunity, and we'll see how we get to. If we have to make a final decision, then we will, but we never like having to do that because we always get the wrong one usually. So, so it's better if it does come from the community. Okay, look, any more questions? If not, we'll ask the Mayor to close the meeting.
Thank you all very much for making the time to come out tonight, and as you can see from the presentation, it was fairly extensive, and thanks very much for your attention. But please don't forget to put in submission. We really do need to know about this, and as you said, it's divided fairly as Marks Council about a number of those issues, so we'd really like to hear from you.
What's our time frame, Don?
April.
It's on the front of the consultation.
Yeah, there's plenty of those here.
16th of March to the 18th of April.
Well, yeah, till the 18th of April, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yes, you've got some time.
And like Clive said, was if you want to come in and talk to any of us, rather than writing something down or doing it on the computer or whatever, all of that is completely doable. Just give us a call and we can work with writing down your thoughts or whatever. If that works better for you, it's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, apart from that, Michelle's got some photographs of the nights jousting.